Welcome back to another Bullish Bears video. I'm your host Kevin, and in today's video I'm going to cover what the gap fill trading strategy is and how we could use the tool Edgeful to see the probabilities of the gap being filled, along with a free indicator included with your Edgeful subscription. So what's a gap fill and how do we use it? Well, a gap fill could mean one of a few things, and it really does depend. If you're looking at the futures gap fill, that could vary from the 5 p.m. futures close to the 6 p.m. Eastern futures open. Or if you're looking at something like the ES, the NQ, this could be the SPY or QQQ, we would want to look at the New York session gap fill. So to find this, we would want to come to our trading view or whatever platform we're using to chart, use our horizontal ray or whatever trend line tool we have, and we would come to the 4 o'clock candle and we would mark out the open. Now if it's a red candle like this, that means the open is at the top of the bar. If it's a green candle, that means the open is at the bottom of the bar. So we're going to mark that out. That's our 4 p.m. That's our New York Stock Exchange close. So that gap fill would be referring to the New York Stock Exchange, because people who are trading SPY, QQQ, or other big stocks, even large caps, Apple, Microsoft, they can't trade when the market is closed. So the other information we have afterwards might just be a lot of noise and chop. So people who trade the gap fill want to know, where is the gap fill price? So our price for this gap fill is at 60.8875. Now, Edgeful does come with a bunch of indicators that plots the gap fill for us and shows us. So I'm going to show you right now. It's called the Edgeful Gap Fill by Session, and you get access to all of their indicators once you become a member of their platform. So we're going to let this play out, and as you guys see, this is the 9:30 candle. Once you get a few candles into the day, you'll see a blue shadow form, and this is where we opened. So we opened at 60.9350. Well, that was the low of the open, and then our gap fill comes down to 60.8875, just like we have plotted out, except the biggest difference is we no longer need to plot it because we're using the tool. Now in the next segment, I'm going to show you how to use Edgeful to gauge what are the odds that we fill this gap, depending on the gap size, depending on the day of the week, and so much more. So let's go. Now, here comes the fun part, and that would be using the Edgeful platform. Now, we're going to come right now into futures. We're going to go to price action, and under report type, gap fill is for the report, and we have the ES, which is, of course, the S&P 500 minis, and we have it on standard. So standard just means overall, what are the odds of the gap being filled, right? If it's a gap up right now, we have a 59% chance of it getting filled. If it's a gap down, we have a 79% chance of it getting filled. Now, there's also a lot more we could customize with this tool. We could look to see how much the gap was filled. If we want to know what the 50% mark is, then we could save that and look to see how often does 50% of the gap get filled. And as you see, the odds of that getting filled to the up and downside increase a lot more in our favor. So instead of looking for a full-on gap fill, we might want to look for a 50% retracement, and we could start to use that to utilize and look to create a trading strategy, setup, or system around these stats. Now, it also gives us a lot more we could choose from. So let's set this back to 100, and again, guys, look at this, even 5, 10, 15%, huge. You could really look if you want to see only 10% of the gap gets filled, 93% of the time, 96% of the time. You could change the date range. Let's look back at the past year. I mean, very frequently, 97%, 98%, if only 10% of the gap gets filled for the New York Stock Exchange gap. Now let's go back to 100, and what I want to show you also is the buy size. Now the reason I want to show you the buy size is because it doesn't go by how many points, it actually goes by a percentage. And the reason it goes by percent is because a point change won't really matter if the stock is up 100 points in equivalent to where we were a month or two ago, right? So if it's a 10-point gap fill on ES right now while our range is 50 points, that might be an easier gap to fill than a 10-point gap fill about a year or two ago when ES wasn't around 6,000 per contract, right? So we're already looking at a very high market. That's why percentage is so important, and that's why we go by percentage. So 0 to 0.19%, 0.2 to 0.39%. You could go through all the difference, and you could see the insights, the category, the frequency, and the percentage within that. And if you do want to see what percentage the gap fill is, when you come to the market open, what you would do is you would come to your ruler tool and you would go from the open to wherever the gap fill is, and that would tell you what percentage you're looking at. And again, this works on the ES, the NASDAQ, all of them. So next we're going to look at by weekday. Now when we're looking at by weekday, it does just that. We're able to look at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And as you see, Wednesday's results for a gap up are a lot different than Monday's results for a gap up. And again, we could also come to customize and keep changing the percentage of that gap fill. You could go by close as well. This is the gap fill by close. Gap ups that filled, gap up down that filled. Gap up filled closed green, gap up filled closed red. Again, it really gives you in depth. You could go by strike as well, and let's see, gap up filled average percent, gap up strike. You could switch it to money, right? So you could see how much per these gap fills. Come right down here for the chart explainer. Guys, that's what's great about Edgeful too. If you're not too sure about something, other than coming to YouTube, finding a video, they do offer chart explainers for gap up spike, gap down spike, and so on. Now we could also come to by fill time, right? How often and how fast do we fill our gaps? Is it within the first hour of the day? You could do gap fill percentage 50%. Let's look at 50% filled in the first hour. Let's save that. Look at that, 78% of the time, 88 out of 113 days, we fill 78% for 50% of the gap fill. And we could also even look by previous candle. By previous candle, what that means is, was the previous daily candle a green candle or a red candle? And again, as we see, we get different results varying on if we have a red or green day in the past. Alright everyone, I do hope this video helped. Hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you guys check us out at bullishbears.com. Check out Edgeful at edgeful.com. I'll post the link to them below. They have tons of great stats. I do believe they have a free trial going on at the moment as well. Take care, happy trading, and I'll see you guys in our live stream.